Hello everyone. So, understanding the composition of oil, I came to the conclusion that oil is the working off of lubricating oil, and it is made, this lubricating oil, from fresh vegetable raw materials. Why is it made from fresh vegetable raw materials? Because the composition of oil includes aromatic hydrocarbons, that is, essential oils. It is also indicated by its sweet taste. There is another point that deserves special attention. In general, it will be discussed today. This is the presence of resins in oil. In general, this moment says a lot. Resin is associated with plants. Indeed, they stand out on trees, herbs for wound healing. By chemical composition, resins are, however, like oil, a mixture of complex hydrocarbons. Therefore, there simply cannot be resin in humus, and even more so in sewage waste. Resin is a property of a living plant. Well, or else it can be in dry raw materials, but not in rotted. When the resin is just released, it is liquid, almost like juice. But over time, from contact with air, from temperature changes, it thickens and acquires a solid structure. So the presence of resin in the composition of oil directly indicates that oil is an oil that was made from fresh vegetable raw materials. Of course, many questions immediately arise. From what kind of raw materials this oil was made, how and where, and this happens. These are the questions we will try to answer today. Well, at least for the first question. Of course, the task is not easy, but let's talk. In plants, the circulation of liquids occurs in the same way as in humans. We have this blood, it is more liquid and thicker lymph, and in plants, it is juice and resin. During the production of oil, naturally, both juice and resin of plants get into it, but their ratio may be different. If we talk about lubricating oil, then oils with a low resin content, however, as well as with a high one, will not work. In the first case, the oil will be too fluid, and in the second, too viscous. For example, castor oil was used until the beginning of the last century. It was widely used during the First World War to lubricate radial aircraft engines. Castor oil gave good lubricity due to its high viscosity, but quickly clogged the engine with carbon deposits and Smanist relations. Therefore, frequent disassembly for cleaning was required every 600 kilometers. By the way, castor oil was used for lubrication in Russia until 1920th year, but as soon as the communists came to power, everyone actually switched to petroleum products. It was Stalin who put the Russian economy on the oil rails. In general, that's what the revolution was for. But this is special information for Stalin's admirers, and I will continue. In general, this is a whole science of how to create a lubricating oil that meets all the necessary requirements, and it seems that in nature, well, there is no ideal raw material for this. But let's not jump to conclusions. To begin with, let's analyze what is happening in the territory where we live, with one of the most important resources on Earth. And what happens is that deforestation is simply on a colossal scale. It became an environmental disaster. No wonder the Greens are sounding the alarm about this, because the logging is not only in Russia. Forests are being cut down in the States, in Canada, in Australia, Indonesia, New Zealand, the same China, on all kinds of islands. For example, the well-known Easter Island was left without a single tree, and I am sure that this is not the only island that has suffered from barbaric deforestation. Yes, take the same New Zealand. For 100 years, it was turned from a huge forest into one continuous pasture. There is such a pattern that any war is accompanied by large-scale logging. Let's look at the Second World War in the volume in the deforestation search engine. So, we read, during the war years, more than 1/10 hectares were cut down, more than 240,000 hectares of young crops were destroyed, 1,765,000 forest nurseries and plantations. And what about the First World War? Maybe the forests were not affected affected in any way. Alas, we read, the destruction of forests in the European part of Russia continued during the First World War, during the Revolution, the Civil War, and foreign intervention. Huge damage was done to the forests of Russia. We are now looking at deforestation in the Patriotic War of 1812. It is not immediately in care, we read below. The patriotic Crimean Wars led to a significant decrease in forest cover in the central district, especially in the western direction, and the figures are also indicated there. What did all this wood go for, and where does it go now? For furniture production or something during the war, but this is unlikely. Even now it's peacetime, not to mention the war, we have all the furniture made of sawdust. And besides, a closet is not a t-shirt to buy. I put it against the wall, and it's been there for 10 or 15 years, or maybe even more. I mean, the scale of deforestation and the production of sawdust furniture is simply incomparable. There is another version where the forest goes, but it does not stand up to any criticism. They say that the redwoods cut down in America were used for firewood. It's such nonsense, as if people don't know that conifers are not suitable for firewood because of the high content of resin that clogs the chimney. And even though it was possible to saw 100-meter giants for firewood, what kind of tools and labor costs are needed? Is it even worth it? All right, let's imagine the impossible. The redwoods were cut for firewood, but now, when there is gas, electricity, solar panels in the end, why are they being cut down? After all, they continue to be cut down until now. They grow not only in America. Redwoods are still being hunted. There were 15 types of them, only 2 remained, and this is not the only kind of disappearing warriors. Where did the juniper forests and the wild juniper species in general go? I would not be surprised if Canadian fir, Australian agathis, Siberian cedar disappear soon, because evergreen species are cut down first of all. And why them? After all, coniferous trees are not suitable for firewood because of the high resin content. For construction as soft rocks, too. Paper from them is only wrapping. Then why are they cut down on such a scale? There is only one option left. Conifers are cut down to get oleoresin, that is, resin. But turpentine oil is already made from oleoresin, the well-known turpentine. By the way, an interesting point, Wikipedia says that turpentine is a large tonnage technical product. That is, turpentine produces tons. I wonder for what such technical purposes. I specifically visited construction shops and 3 pharmacies of different firms in my district. Turpentine was not available anywhere, either as a solvent or as a medical preparation. That is, now you will not find turpentine during the day with fire. Then what are these tons used for? For what technical purposes? And now let's compare the composition of oil and turpentine. Of course, I am not a chemist, and I cannot provide a detailed laboratory analysis. But there are certain specific points that leave no doubt. Both are oils consisting of a mixture of complex hydrocarbons, such as essential oils, paraffins, naphthenes and resins, or asphaltenes in another way. Let's go through each of them. So, essential oils, those who have been to coniferous forests know how much ether-filled air there is, what a persistent resinous aroma there is. Oil also has a persistent smell, however, with metallic impurities. It is understandable, because this is no longer turpentine in its pure form, but it's working out. Turpentine passed through a metal structure, was subjected to pressure, thermal effects, therefore, oil and distillation products such as gasoline, kerosene, fuel oil, a pronounced technical smell. As for paraffins, or in another way they are also called petroleum wax, the name speaks for itself. It is the same vegetable wax, but only passed through the mechanism. Naphthalene are, simply put, soap. Naphtha soap is made from oil, which is used as a detergent and disinfectant. There is also such a green soap. Gardeners know about it. It is also an oil product. So foaming is a property of resins and not soapy. And resin, as a component of lubricating oil, does not burn out, but darkens, thickens, and turns into asphalt and bitumen. Yes, asphalt, which has been poured over vast territories, is nothing but spent, repeatedly cleaned vegetable resin. In general, all the listed components are in any vegetable oil, and any vegetable oil is a solvent. Only narrow faggots. This property is expressed most strongly, as in the products of oil refining, kerosene, and gasoline. Therefore, I believe that turpentine was chosen to lubricate the planetary turbine. It is an ideal solvent, and it is not difficult to get it on Earth. I cut it down, squeezed it out, or rather crumbled it, squeezed it out, and please, the oil is ready for ye. Oil to the owner, and sawdust to us. And I think now it becomes clear why the main symbol of the new year are conifers. But we must pay tribute. The sap of coniferous species gave the invader, or rather provided them with wealth, power, a source of electric energy. It's not for nothing that the Christmas tree is decorated with burning garlands. In general, she gave them an eternal holiday. And if we think from the point of view that oil is spent turpentine, then all New Year's symbols and signs become clear. And it's not for nothing that they solve all their so-called economic issues in a bohemian grove among redwoods. You know, just as in our world, there are advanced industrialized countries, and there are raw materials appendages. So in the global universal world, there is exactly the same division. The younger ones always try to imitate the older ones. So our elites have completely copied such a world order from their masters and are happy to serve them even as a raw material appendage, receiving as a reward useless waste slags in the form of oil. Yes, on a universal scale, I believe that there is a whole industrial, just a huge world, but in it we take the place of a raw material appendage and sacrifice the most valuable thing we have. These are forever green forests. Well, that's it. Thank you all for your attention. See you in the following videos.